Let's continue for this single base answers for love and belly. Question number 131 with regard to malarial parasites, sporozoites. So, what about malarial parasite? Parasite may remain dormant in the hypnozoites. The malarial parasite has a complex cycle. Their definitive host is the mosquito, and parasite undergo a cycle of sexual asexual development. In intermediate host is the human. Human is the intermediate host, and definitive host is mosquito. There are intermediate host. Parasites undergo two cycles of asexual development in liver and red blood cells. In addition, there are alternate extracellular stages. Genetic recombination allowed by sexual stage is one element in remarkable androgenic diversity within which malarial parasite population that enables to evade immune response. The malaria life cycle is easiest to understand if this is broken into three stages. Intermediate host is human. The intermediate host is the hepatic stage and erythrocytic. Human infection begins when sporozoites are introduced into individual's bloodstream and an infected mosquito takes a blood meal. Within 30 minutes, they disappear from the blood as the infect hepatocyte. Here, they undergo first round of asexual reproduction that is called as exoerythrocytic schizogony and develops exocytic schizons. So first is hepatic phase, it through the bloodstream. This is first hepatic stage, intermediate host. These schizons contain schizons, many thousands of merozoites. On invasion of hepatocyte by Plasmodium vivax and ovale, development of schizont is retarded and dormant stage of parasite hypnozoite is formed. This is responsible for disease relapse months to years after supposed chemotherapy cure and clearance of bloodstream form of parasites. Now second stage is erythrocytic stage. The release of merozoites infected are red cells. They undergo a round of asexual reproduction, erythrocyte schizogeny, changing from merozoite to trophozoites. Here trophozoites are formed. So these trophozoites feeding to schizon eventually cell ruptures and release new merozoites and go on to infect more red cells. Generally, the parasite life cycle stages are highly synchronized and they are one time all parasites are trophozoite stage. At all are schizon stage. Fever in malaria is either tertian every 48 hours. So in malaria, the fever is every 48 hours in falciparum, Plasmodium falciparum, vivax or ovale, or it can be every 72 hours, quantum. So fever in malaria is either tertian, quantum. The malignant tertian fever is due to falciparum. In addition, on infection of the new blood cells, instead of forming trophozoite, parasites may grow into the human immature gametophytes. These are now released from red cells until feeding mosquito. Now, definitive determined host mosquito, the female Anopheles mosquito ingests the blood as a part of life cycle. Here, the normally sexually dividing bloodstream forms dies, but gametocytes are stimulated to mature microgametes. Male and female fertilization occurs in mosquito midgut, resulting formation of zygote. This then goes into produce worm-like form and oocyte and penetrate the midgut wall of mosquito, forming the oocyte. Oocyst located between epithelium and basement membrane. Note that zygote is the sole diploid stage of malarial parasite. The only meiosis event during this life cycle occurs within few hours of zygote formation. Within the oocyte is cycle of asexual reproduction then take place in formation of numerous sporozoites. When mature oocyte burst and releasing these sporozoites, then they migrate to insect salivary gland. From here, they may enter the bloodstream of the newest, thus completing the parasite cycle. So, man is the intermediate host. The sporozoites invade erythrocytes. So, with regard to this, parasite may remain dormant in liver as hypnozoites. So, for many years they remain. Sporozoites doesn't invade erythrocytes. Erythrocytes are invaded by actually merozoites, trophozoites. Trophozoites are formed merozoites. asexual production. Then tropocytes invade hepatocytes. Again, this is tropocytes invade erythrocytes, merocytes invade hepatocytes. So hepatic stage human infection begins when sporocytes invade hepatocyte. They invade hepatocyte, not erythrocyte. Sporocytes introduced into indigenous bloodstream infect blood. Infection begins with the sporocytes introduced. These sporocytes invade hepatocytes to form merocytes. Hepatocytes, sporocytes invade hepatocyte, they form merocytes. Then they can remain dormant as hypnozoites. So now from this, they release merocytes. In this, they remain hypnozoites, and merocytes may be released, and they relate merocytes. The released merocytes infect. This is merocytes which invades erythrocytes. Sporocytes, hepatocyte, and merocyte invades erythrocytes. Then cytosol contain mosquito salivary glands. Cytosol contain within mosquito. What does this is definitive? And if mosquito injures the blood part cycle, then here is a bloodstream formed, but gametocytes are stimulated to mature. Microgamete fertilization occurs in mosquito midgut, resulting then goes on to produce worm-like ooconate penetrate midgut mosquito, forming an oocyte with an epithelial basement. Note that zygote is the sole diploid stage of malaria, the only meiosis event during which cycle within oocyte cycle takes place and formation of sporocytes. When mature oocyte burst open from here, releasing these sporocytes. This is not cyzone, this is the sporocytes. Sporozoites. They are present in the mosquito salivary gland, which are invading the hepatocytes. Whose sporocytes are released in the bloodstream. So salivary gland contains sporocytes. Sporocytes are injected into the human body. The sporocytes invade first liver, then erythrocytes, and there they form trophocytes. These trophocytes, then cyzones, and all this fertilization formation of zygote occurs in humans. This occurs in mosquito. Mosquito is the definite host. Mosquito. With regard, next question, regard to esophageal constriction, lower esophageal sphincter is true anatomical structure. No, narrow, then may cause, this is the physiological, this is not anatomical, Jesus. They may caused by the right principal bronchus. Right principal bronchus doesn't cause constriction. This is basically left narrowest part of esophagus at the level of cricopharynx. Any foreign body is like, it is 15 centimeter, it is 15. Then next is 0.2 is cross aortic arch, it's 22. Then third is 27, then 40. So second is the aortic arch, C, A, B, D, diaphragm. B is bronchus, left principal bronchus. It is not right. This is left. They may be caused normally by left atrium. Left atrium doesn't cause any constriction. They may be caused by descending thoracic aorta. This doesn't cause constriction. Constrictions are because of cricopharynx. Second is by arch of aorta. Third is by left principal bronchus. Fourth is the opening. Constriction of consumer important sites and swallowing anything. Which one of the following is true of hemoglobin dissociation curve? It is rectangular, parabola. No, it is S-shaped. It is shifted to the left by increase in partial pressure of carbon dioxide. Whenever there is increased PCO2, means there is acidosis. Acidosis causes shift to the right. Fetal hemoglobin shifts curve to left. This is left. This is left. This is right. Acidosis. This is S-shaped. Haldane effect describes change in affinity of hemoglobin change for oxygen following variations in CO2. Yes, this is actually Haldane change in affinity of hemoglobin chain for carbon dioxide. It is not Haldane effect describes change in affinity of hemoglobin chain for oxygen following variation of carbon dioxide. It is variation not in carbon dioxide. Oxygen shift to the left is called the fetal hemoglobin. There is the effect of shift to the right is now the shape of curve is explained by physiochemical properties. Is explained by physiochemical. This is physio and chemical hemoglobin. They are explaining. So how is that hemoglobin curve is sigmoid shape? This is called as sigmoid. Underlying biochemical properties of hemoglobin resulting cooperate. That is, protein cannot be considered in terms of 4 individual oxygen binding. Hemoglobin binds successful oxygens and oxygen affinity of subunits increases. Hyperbolic curves are monomonic molecules bioglobin. Significant sigmoidal curve is hemoglobin becomes highly saturated at high oxygen partial pressure and release significant amount of oxygen at the pressure when fairly low, but not extremely as so. The effect of the shift of the curve to the right is raised CO2 shift to the right. So raised CO2 shift to the right, cadet lowered pH, increased temperature, increased dPg, increased osmolality. The effect of CO2 and hydrogen ion on oxygen carriage is known as effect of CO2 is known as Bohr effect, and exactly what is needed is metabolic tissue release of acids or CO2 thus liberates oxygen to fulfill metabolic needs. Do not confuse this with the effect of change in oxygen on CO2 carriage, which is called as Haldane effect. So, in affinity of hemoglobin chain for Haldane effect, do not confuse this with the effect of changes in oxygen on CO2 carriage, which is called as Haldane effect. Haldane describes the change in affinity of hemoglobin chain for oxygen follow variation is PO2. It is not with this POCO2. It is actually left shift is Haldane effect. Effect of changes in oxygen on CO2 carriage, which is called as Haldane. CO2 carriage, effect of partial pressure of oxygen is there only. With regard to schistosomosis, parasitic infections may be caused by protozoa or metazoa. Parasite, protozoa, plasmodium falciparum, a single nucleus organism that possesses all primary necessary for metazoan is a multicentric organism. Example for infective metazoa includes helminths, parasitic worms, which can subdivide into 3 classes: nematodes, cystos, and trematodes. Schistosomiasis is most important in helminth disease. 200 million population worldwide. 3 major species. All are trematodes. Life cycle of platform. So life cycle of parasites such as infect human Schistosoma mansoni japonica. Life cycle of platform that causes human schistosoma involves sexual state in the human, asexual state in the freshwater snails, and which acts as a vector intermediate host. Schistosoma excrete in the feces or urine, hatch out in the freshwater and release miracidae and invade the snails. Free swimming can release in the larva, migrate into the bloodstream via lungs and liver to veins of the bowel bladder system and were developed into adult males. The pathophysiological system is mainly due to immune response against the schistosoma eggs. In liver, they may result in granuloma formation, extensive fibrosis, pipestone fibrosis, and schistosoma may be responsible for urinary schistosomiasis treated with praziquantel. So here's the answer is disease results from immune response to schistosoma egg. Schistosoma mansoni causes urinary schistosomiasis. It is not the Schistosoma mansoni. These are schistosoma parasites infects humans. Schistosoma mansoni, japonicum, hematum, all are trematodes. Schistosoma is important helminths. This is helminth. Life cycle of this is Schistosoma hematobium. This is not mansoni, hematobium. Urinary is hematobium. Immediate host is sandfly. The sandfly is not the host. Parasite may be protozoa, parasites, metazoan, multicellular, effective. The most important element, 3 major species. The life cycle of human, sexual family, the human and freshwater snail. Intermediate host. This is intermediate host. and the asexual state in the freshwater snail host. Freshwater snail. Not sandfly. Disease results from immune response to okay. It is treated with praziquintal, not quinine. So it is caused by protozoan. No, parasite is caused. Parasitic infection may be caused by protozoan or metazoa. Parasitic protozoa falciparum. Protozoan or metazoa. Protozoan is falciparum, Plasmodium falciparum, and metazoan is a multicellular organism. Examples metazoan include helminths, nematodes, which are divided into further subdivided into classes like nematodes, cystodes, and trematodes. Schistosomiasis is most important helminth disease. 203 major species of schistosome parasites are seen. Mansuni, Japonicum, Hematum, all are trematodes. Cystosodes, nematodes, roundworms, cystosodes, and trematodes. Flukes. So these are trematodes. The life cycle of platform that causes human system involves sexual life, and that is the 183-year-old man has chest pain. Person is having chest pain, breathlessness, ankle edema on clinical examination. Cardiomegaly is identified. Subsequent diagnosis of viral myocarditis. Which of the following organisms is the most responsible for this illness? So viral myocarditis is commonly caused by Coxsackie B virus and may be preceded by gastroenterological symptoms. Rhinovirus, coronavirus, and adenovirus also with common cold. So directly it is myocarditis. All these corona, adeno, and these cause common cold. Mumps causes orchitis. Which one of the following changes in the disease pattern has occurred in Europe and North America over past 50 years? What has happened? Death from gastric carcinoma has fallen in past 50 years. Death from the lung cancer in women has shown a steep rise. Lung cancer has increased. This may be attributable to increased smoking. Because of smoking, habits of women in modern society. In males, death rate from the lung cancer peaked in 1980 and show a slight fall. Suicide rates in the countries fall during wartime. Suicide rates during wartime and low in 1950s. Since then, it is shown the steady increase in both sexes. In 1980 terms, HIV and AIDS did not even exist. It was not existing. However, as of January 2006, just over 25 years of recognition, the World Health Organization estimated 38.6 million population worldwide HIV positive and have died of AIDS-related deaths, making it one of the most destructive pandemics in recorded history. So HIV is most commonly. Much more mysterious is the downward trend in deaths from stomach carcinoma in last 50 years. Such trend provides us a valuable information regarding etiology of stomach cancer. Downward trend may be due to decrease in dietary carcinogens. More recent decline may be in part due to Helicobacter pylori eradication. Since therapy, it has now believed that H. pylori plays a pivotal role of gastric carcinoma. H. pylori. Death rate from suicide has fallen. It has increased. Number of HIV has drastically increased. Death from lung cancers in males has risen. In women has rose. With regard to diaphragm, it is composed of smooth muscle. No. It contracts with expiration. No. It forms the main muscle of respiration at rest. This is true. So diaphragm is a muscular tendon structure composed of outer skeletal muscle fiber and central tendon. It partitions thoracic from the abdominal cavity and maintains restless respiration, 70% inspiration at rest. Upon inspiration, diaphragm contracts and moves down, resulting in diaphragm is supplied by motor inertia from phrenic nerve C3, 4, 5. Keep the diaphragm alive. C3, 4, 5. C3, C4, C5. Keep diaphragm alive. 5 alive. C3, C4, C5. So this is the mnemonic. C3, C4, C5. Keep diaphragm alive. The diaphragm has no other motor supply other than phrenic nerve. Why? This is why cervical spine injuries with injury to spinal cord is so disastrous. Hence, the importance of proper cervical involation trauma victim is important. So, phrenic nerve is 2/3 motor and 1/3 sensory. Sensory supply to diaphragmatic parietal pleura and diaphragmatic peritoneum covering central surface of diaphragm is from phrenic nerve, and the sensory supply to the periphery of diaphragm is from the lower 6 intercostal nerves. So at high altitudes, when atmospheric pressure is halved, which of the following changes occurs? Decrease pulmonary arterial pressure, decrease arterial pH, increase partial pressure of oxygen, decrease pulmonary blood viscosity increases. Why? At high altitude, decreased atmospheric pressure results in decreased ambient oxygen concentration, therefore decrease in arterial PO2. So arterial PO2 decreases. Then what happens? Decrease oxygen concentration. There is increase in pulmonary ventilation. Pulmonary ventilation has to increase. Stimulation of chemoreceptor by lack of oxygen. Hyperventilation causes alkalosis. So pH should be increasing because of hyperventilation. This inhibits cerebral chemoreceptor and thereby opposes the effect of low PO2 to stimulate peripheral chemoreceptors, breaking the hypoxia leads to pulmonary vasoconstriction, pulmonary hypertension. So that causes, this is decreased pulmonary pressure. No, it increases pulmonary hypertension. Acclimatization, adaptive process to sustain gradually increase hypoxia occurs in the long term through variety of different mechanisms. So removal of the braking effect by change in composition of cerebrospinal fluid, reduction bicarbonate concentration of and increase the renal excretion of bicarbonate results in increased pulmonation. So these are the acclimatization. What happens? How it gets acclimatized? Erythropoiesis. Through the effect of hypoxia, stimulating erythropoietin secretion from the kidneys, increase the oxygen carrying capacity of blood, thus raise the blood hemocritic value. There is increased cardiac output. There is increased capillary members, an increase in concentration of tooth right shift. There is cellular acclimation lead to mitochondria and oxidation. If the person ascends to altitude too quickly without giving enough time for the acclimatation mechanism, or remains high altitude for a long time, or mountain sickness may occur. This is the only term of high altitude sickness, that is immediate descent from the mountain. Prions are infectious microorganisms responsible for causing kuru in humans. Prions are a novel infection composed of protein only. They are different from pathogens. They are nucleic acid, cannot be considered microorganisms, highly resistant to decontamination methods, autoclaving, heating, everything. This cannot kill. If abnormal prions protein is inoculated into normal host, conformational changes occurs. So responsible kuru in the humans. There is, what is kuru? Infectious microorganisms. So this is not microorganisms, they are novel infection compound proteins. These are proteins. Destroyed by, cannot be, not contain nucleic acid. They are highly resistant, contain inoculate homologs. The original inoculated protein is able to catalyze the chain reaction and host proteins become well-known prion diseases include kuru, scurpy, bovine spongiform encephalopathy, and CJD disease. Creutzfeldt-Jakob disease. This is prion. It is occurred in village from Fort Tube in highlands of New Guinea, who practice ritual cannibalism as a rite for mourning for their dead. The first case occurred in 1950, involved progressive loss of voluntary control following death within a year of onset. Symptoms of kuru occurred only in individuals who participated in cannibalistic feast. Such cannibalism was believed to be responsible for transmission of kuru. There is still much work to be done regarding exact modes of transmission of prions, molecular biology. In addition, exact interrelation between different prions related disease need to be clarified. Which of the following is best neutrophil and macrophage chemotactant? C5a is a component of complement activation of complement by endotoxin. C5 is a component of complement. Activation of complement by endotoxin or antigen antibody complexes. C5 is complement. C5 is a component of complement. 140. Activation of complement by endotoxin or antibody complexes produce C5A, which is neutrophil, macrophage, chemotactic, HLA, HABO, human leukocyte antigens, and control of synthesis of class 1 major complex JJ. So, which of the following is the best neutrophil chemotactin? This is a chemotactic. This is a complement. This is the thing. Rest of the things we have to study. With regard to diaphragmatic openings, inferior vena cava passes. This is VOA 8, 10, 12. So, inferior vena cava. It is not just 8. Muscular part of diaphragm at inferior vena cava. Muscular part of diaphragm at T8. Here is again, now it's not about just, it is a muscular part, it is tendinous part. Aortic opening lies at T12. Esophageal opening transmits phrenic nerve. It is vagus. Then left phrenic passes with esophagus through esophageal opening. This is again wrong. Simply passes posterior to medial arcuate ligament. This is right. So right phrenic is only passing, left phrenic is not passing through the vena cava. Esophageal opening is esophagus, left and right. Rib, right is posterior. Esophageal branches, left gastric vessels. Aortic opening, azygos, hemiazygos, scrura, greater, medial arcuate, sympathetic trunk, lateral arcuate, subcostal, T12, neurovascular bundle. So continuing for the next question, with regard to gases exchange, rate of diffusion occurs with regard to gas exchange. Rate of diffusion across the alveoli is directly proportional to the thickness. And so this is not true. We have to understand the mechanism. Next, under resting condition, equilibrium between alveoli, partial pressure of oxygen and red blood cells occurs 1/3 of the way along the pulmonary capillary. So this we are at rest, red blood cells spend approximately 5 seconds within the pulmonary capillary. To understand this, let me read the gas exchange within lung takes place at the level of alveoli. It's okay. It obeys a fixed law which states that rate of transfer of gas through the sheet of tissue is directly proportional to tissue surface area, and difference in partial pressure between the two sides is inversely proportional to thickness. Directly proportional. More the thickness, more will be take. No, it is inversely. This is inverse, definitely. Difference partial pressure, two sides, inversely proportional to tissue thickness. Under resting conditions, the area of blood gas in the lung is around enormous, and the thickness is only 0.3 micrometers. So dimension of the barrier are ideal diffusion. Any disruption to the factor that affect rate of transfer through the respiratory disease occurs. For example, thickness of respiratory membrane increases significantly in interstitial fibrosis, pulmonary edema, pneumonia, interfering with the normal spine. Likewise, surface area may be decreased in emphysema, and to name just a few examples. Capillaries from the dense center form the alveoli. Diameter of the capillaries. Now what happens? Regarding capillaries, at rest red blood corpuscles, the rate of diffusion across the alveolar wall is inversely proportional to the surface area. The rate of diffusion across the alveolar wall is inversely proportional to the surface area. Directly proportional. It is directly proportional again. Surface area is directly proportional. Chlorine is the gas of choice for measuring diffusion. This is helium. Carbon dioxide is the gas of choice for measurement of tissue transfer. It's not chlorine, it is carbon dioxide. Measuring diffusion properties of lung. Then at rest, each RBC spends average 0.75 seconds. It's not 5 seconds, 0.75 seconds in the capillary network. So the answer in this is, under resting condition, equilibrium between partial pressure of alveoli, PO2 and blood cells occur 1/3 of the way along the pulmonary capillary. The capillaries form the dense network. The diameter of the capillary is just large enough for the RB cells. These increase the efficiency of gas exchange at rest. Under a typical resting condition, capillary PO2 virtually reaches alveolar and RBC in 1/3 of the way of the capillaries. Which of the following definition is correct? Hyperplasia is increase in tissue growth. Tissue growth through increase in cell size? No, it is hypertrophy. Dysplasia is change from one type of differential tissue to the another. It is metaplasia. From one to another is one to another. Adaptive response is one to another cell type is this is metaplasia, and this is hyperplasia is number, not size. Carcinoma in situ, carcinoma with stromal invasion? No. Carcinoma in situ is limited to basement membrane. It should be limited to basement membrane. Anaplasia is almost complete lack of differentiation. Complete lack of differentiation, poorly differentiation. This is right. Anaplasia is lack of differentiation. Metaplasia is disordered development of cell, loss of organization. It is conversion from one form to one to another. One to another. And what is disordered development of cells with loss of organization is? This is neoplasm is new growth. Hyperplasia, dysplasia is disorder. This is dysplasia. Development loss of differentiation, dysplasia. Metaplasia is conversion. A 92-year-old man has died secondary to lobar pneumonia. The person has expired because of lobar pneumonia. At postmortem, he is diagnosed with red hepatization. Hepatization means lungs is converting into the liver-like. Pathologic process with the lung was responsible. What has happened actually? So, desquamation of trachea and bronchial epithelium. Lobar pneumonia. There are 4 stages of lobar pneumonia. First, there is congestion in first 24 hours. Second is red. Here it has died of red hepatization. Second is red hepatization. Then there is grey hepatization. Then there is resolution. Red hepatization is characterized as a firm consistency of lung due to filling of alveolar spaces by extra erythrocytes, fibrin and leukocytes. Fibrin meshwork and degenerative erythrocytes defines grey hepatization when fibrin develops. So how is this? Initially there is congestion. Then there is congestion, red, grey, fibrosis. This is the, but if person dies here means so what is the answer? Desquamation, there is no desquamation, fibroerosion, alcoholic toxic necrosis, leukocyte, erythrocyte, fibrin filling of the alveolar spaces. So this is the thing, alveolar spaces are filled with this. So pleural deposits of fibrin and low molecular, this is not the thing. All these they fill. First red hepatization, grey hepatization, then fibrinization. This is the thing which we will see. With regard to tumor suppression genes, they are suppressing the tumors. So P53 and RB are tumor suppression, normally function as an apoptic factor. It's not, this is the tumor suppression. Tumor suppression gene codes encode protein that negatively regulate cell proliferation and thus suppress the tumor growth. P53 in RBN, good example located at chromosome 17 and 13. These are 17 and 13. P53 are 17. 53 and 17, it's equal to 70, and 13 and 1 is 14. So 70, 40, 70, 14. So this is P53. You make it round figure, 17. And RB1, good example located in 17 respectively. P53 called as guardian of genome. This is called as guardian, GAURDIN, of genome. It is protective, P53. And trigger apoptosis, and it triggers apoptosis. Function as a anti-apoptotic, no, it triggers apoptosis. Indeed, approximately 50% of human tumors contain mutations. Mutations with the results in propagation of genetic damaged cells. Any mutation in this P53 will lead to malignancies. So 50% of the human tumor contains mutation in P53. P53 related cancers are more aggressive and poor prognosis. In contrast to oncogenes, these are tumor suppression genes. While in contrast to these oncogenes, tumor caused by tumor suppression genes are generally caused by mutation that result in loss of function of gene product. Neoplastic growth resulting from loss of protective role of tumor suppression gene. Loss of tumor suppression gene functional usually requires inactivation of both alleles of the genes, so that all protective effect of tumor suppression genes lost. Therefore, that is the tumor suppression that generally deemed to behave in a recessive manner. So this is recessive. The encode proteins that are positively regulate growth. Cellular proliferation therefore tightly regulated by two sets of opposing functioning, the growth promoting genes, proto-oncogenes, and negative cycle regulators, tumor suppression genes. Abnormal activation of proto-oncogenes or loss of function of tumor suppression leads to transformation normal into cancer cells. So encode proteins that positively regulate growth. They are not positively. Their tumor suppression is not positively growth. It is suppressing. That's why. And proto-oncogenes are growth promoting. Proto-oncogene. They behave in dominant. This is tumor suppression is recessive. There has to be both allele. Gain of function of tumor suppression gene results in neoplastic growth. Their gain of function is loss of function. Their loss. Which one of the following muscle is innervated by facial? So these are muscles of mastication. Temporalis is muscle, masseter, lateral pterygoid, and buccinator is muscle of facial expression. Buccinator. So that's why buccinator is supplied by facial nerve. Lateral pterygoid, masseter, anterior belly of digastric, and temporalis, all are muscles of mastication, therefore innervated by mandibular nerve. The regard of transpyloric planet is halfway between suprasternal. It lies at the level of T12. It is the origin of inferior mesenteric artery. It levels the level of the hilum of kidney. It is the point at which aorta bifurcates. So now it is at L1 level actually. Regards of transpyloric plane of adhesion. So it point at which aorta bifurcates is L4. Level of hilum of the kidney is hilum of the kidney is L2 and all that. Then it lies at the origin of inferior mesenteric artery is L3. It lies at the level of T12 is celiac. It lies halfway between suprasternal notch and umbilicus. This is the this is supra. L1 is the level of hilum of the kidney is L1. Hilum of the kidney. It is not the renal vessels are below. So this is the hilum of kidney. Halfway between suprasternal notch and umbilicus. Transpyloric halfway between suprasternal notch and not umbilicus. This is pubic symphysis. Not the umbilicus. With regard that direction that can be different, halfway between suprasternal notch. Suprasternal notch means chest, T2, and pubic symphysis. It is completely including all the vertebrae. So L1 level of vertebra has to be there. With regard to gastric acid, it is inhibited by gastrin. Gastric acid is inhibited by gastrin. No, it is potentiated by histamine. This is right. Histamine potentiates it. Commences only when food enters. No, it is similar to glossopharyngeal. No, vagus nerve stimulated by somatostatin. It also inhibits. How is this? There are three phases. Cephalic phase, signal production of gastric acid. Food actually doesn't enter in the stomach, triggered by smell to the vagus nerve. Gastric food in contact, then it leads to intestinal phase. Gastric acid is stimulated by three factors. Three factors stimulate gastric acid: acetylcholine, parasympathetic by vagus parietal cell, then gastrin, and then histamine. Mast cells. Histamine stimulates parietal cell directly to potentiate parietal cell stimulation by gastrin neuron stimulation. It is histamine blocker such as ranitidine has effective reducing acid secretion. Gastric acid is inhibited by, and it is inhibited by, this is increased and inhibited by three factors: somatosecretin is an intestinal enzyme, and cholecystokinase CCK. So these are histamine stimulants and these are inhibit. With regard to adrenal gland, suprarenal vein on each side drains into corresponding renal vein. No, it is different. Left sided into left renal vein and right side into the inferior vena cava. Adrenal gland is situated in the same facial compartment as the kidney. No, the axonal glomerula forms the innermost layer. GFR. Anterior surface of the right adrenal overlapped by the inferior vena cava. This can be possible. Anterior surface can be lapped by inferior vena cava. Adrenal medulla is derived from embryonic mesoderm. No. Adrenal gland lies anterior superior to upper part of each kidney. They weigh approximately 5 grams and measure 50 mm vertically. They are somewhat asymmetrical, with right adrenal pyramidal and left adrenal crescentic lie within their own compartment of gyrotous renal fascia. Same facial compartment? No, it is own compartment. Their compartment is own, separate. So whenever you are trying to dissect the kidney down, adrenal hive will be remaining there only. So there is a facial septum that separates adrenal from the kidney, which explains why nephrectomy, removal of kidney later gland, is not usually displaced. So we are doing mobilization of the kidney also during stone surgery. Upper pole is totally mobilized, so adrenal gland remains as it is. Each gland, although only weighing a few grams, 3 arteries supplying direct branch from the aorta, a branch from renal artery and branch. So what about this adrenal vein? The single main suprarenal gland drains nearest available vessel. On the right, it drains to inferior vena cava. On left, it is into kidney. So right is different, left is different. The gonadal vein. So GFR, glomerular, fascicular, reticulosa, aldosterone section. Which one of the following is true regarding gastrin? It is secreted in the body of stomach. Gastrin is secreted by gastrin cells found in two locations: pylorus of the stomach and upper part of small intestine. It is not in the body of stomach. This is very confusing. Gastrin is in pylorus and small intestine. So here you have seen three factors, they stimulate the gastric acid secretion. Gastrin, ideally name word is G cells, but it's not in it. Is gastrin is released by vagus stimulation and distillation of pylorus proteins, especially. Gastrin is inhibited by low pH pyloric enzyme somatostatin. Gastrin has three main actions: stimulate gastric acid, stimulate motility, and stimulate exocrine pancreas. Overproduction of gastrin leads to excessive gastric acid secretion and for formation of the multiple peptic ulcers. Zollinger-Ellison syndrome is the gastrinoma. So gastrin is produced by pylorus and small intestine. It is stimulated by low pH. It stimulates inhibited. Gastrin is, whenever there is pH is low, means already acid is there. It is inhibited. It stimulates gastric acid production. This is right. It inhibits gastric motility. Gastrin promotes gastric motility. Decreased secretion results in zoligan. It is increased secretion results in. Lung carcinoma is the third most common cause of death from neoplasm in its first, I think. Currently, lung cancer is the most common. This is first. Has rarely metastasis time of presentation. Estimate 90% bronchocarcinoma have metastasis. 50% mets may produce paraneoplastic syndrome. This is true. Lung cancer most common due to squamous cell carcinoma, result of squamous metaplasia from smoking. Tobacco smoking is believed to be more 89%. Lung carcinoma remainders are associated with red and gas and asbestos exposure. Pathologic effects of tumors may be local or distant. Distant may be metastatic, metastatic or non-metastatic paraneoplastic. Applying this to the lung, we have local effects, pulmonary environment, cough and blocked by the tumor, cause the disruption of mucociliary hemoptysis, ulcerations in local invasion, hoarseness, recurrent allergy, nerves and everything can happen. Effusion, distant metastasis. Pathological fractures can occur, neurological symptoms, brain metastasis, hepatomegaly. This can occur because of non-metastatic paraneoplastic symptoms, effect of ectopic hormone production, ADH, ACTH, and all these leads to generalized symptoms, weight loss, anorexia, lassitude, acute phase proteins. Paraneoplastic symptom signs associated with malignant tumor that are not due to direct local effect tumor development. So these are paraneoplastic syndromes. Secretion of excess of ADH or all ACTH, serotonin. These are called as paraneoplastic syndrome. It is most commonly due to small cell oat cell carcinoma. Is not most common. Squamous cell carcinoma is most common. SCC is most commonly caused by asbestos, snow, tobacco, and smoking. Smoking, tobacco. Now, next question is: prokaryotes differ from eukaryotes in that prokaryotes have peptoglycan in their cell walls, which makes them susceptible to penicillins. Sterol and endoplasmic reticulum are the features of eukaryotes. Bacteria generally contain single circular chromosomes, plasmids, prokaryotes. With regard to vermiform appendix, now coming to appendix, it is most often situated in the pelvic position. It receives blood supply of right colic. It lies at the McBurney's point, halfway between anterior superior spine and the halfway. No, to that it is unimportant. It is unimportant in human. Yes, this is unimportant in human. So most often situated commonest type is appendix blind to appendix wearing a opens to posterior middle wall of cecum tenacula. Appendix intraperitoneal structure, therefore it is own mesentery, mesoappendic within the mesentery branch of ileocolic. It's not a branch of supramesenteric, it is a branch of ileocolic. Then its surface marking of the appendix is one way, 1/3 is not halfway, 1/3 and that. The position of the free appendix is important. However, most common found position operation is retrocecal. It's not. It has own mesentery. With regard to exocrine, pancreas secretes digestive juices with pH of 4 to 5. It is alkaline. This is wrong. It develops from single ventral with two buds. Secretion is inhibited by cholecystokinin stimulated. The main stimulation of secretion occurs during intestinal phase. It produces secretin. The main stimulation during intestinal phase. This is true. Pancreas mix exocrine endocrine. Fusion of two separate two buds. The embryology helps the exocrine component of pancreas closely packed with the alkaline. This is alkaline. It's around 500 ml. pH is 8. Stimulated secretion is inhibited by cholecystokinin. With regard to secretion, pancreas. cephalic acid, it is the weak cephalic acid contributes 15% of the enzyme. The weak gastric acid, the main stimulation is the intestinal phase. The hormone released by the endocrine secretary and duodenal promotes secretion of copious watery secretion derived from the duodenal, stimulates secretion. This stimulates secretin. Stimulates cholecystokinin. This is also, it produces secretin. No, pancreas, secretin is produced by the secretin, a hormone released by endocrine secretin duodenal mucosa promotes. This is by duodenal mucosa. Secretin is by duodenal mucosa. 70 attends a general practice surgery with a 7-day-old history of diarrhea and vomiting and 3-day history of jaundice. 17 years old man attends a general practice surgery of 7-day history of diarrhea and 3-day history of jaundice. He is getting jaundice since 3 days. He does not complain of any pain apart from mid-abdominal discomfort. Examination, other symptoms were unremarkable. Blood test shows increased levels of unconjugated bilirubin. So this is Gilbert syndrome, is autosomal recessive metabolic inherited. Gilbert, you know what is there in Gilbert? Autosomal dominant fashion depending on type of mutation, causing increased level of unconjugated bilirubin. It is commonly hereditary, cause hyperbilirubinemia, decreased activity of enzyme glucuronyl transferase. Glucuronyl transferase. This enzyme, which conjugates, helps in conjugation. Bilirubin is excreted from body to in conjugate form. So what is there? Bile test shows increased level of unconjugation. So conjugation, there is problem with the conjugation. That's why there is no obstructive symptoms. The only thing is conjugation is not possible. Which of the following ulcers is associated with medial burns? Burns, R is there, curling, and stress is there, Cushing's. Head injury, marginal venous arterial. 30-year involved road of accident and brought into the resuscitation accident department. He was passenger seat car and hit from the side door to the crash door and resulted in injury to the lateral aspect of the knee. Radiograph show fracture left neck of the fibula. Which one of the following would? So neck of the fibula is fractured, common peroneal nerve injured, the person is unable to, loss of ankle dorsiflexion. You know why? Plantar flexion is by S1 and dorsiflexion is by, so neck of the common peroneal nerve, common peroneal. Foot inversion. So in neck fibula fracture, common peroneal nerve is likely to damage surround the neck. Common peroneal nerve supplies muscles in lateral anterior compartment, allowing ankle dorsiflexion, foot eversion. So ankle dorsiflexion and foot eversion. Anytime patient unable to dorsiflex or evert the foot, both the things will be lost. Foot eversion has to be there, causing foot drop, and stepping gait. So foot inversion, foot plantar flexion, this will be S1. This is directly common peroneal foot drop. Immediate stepping. Parasympathetic supply of parotid gland originates from which one of the following? So it is parasympathetic supply of viscera and glands of the body, sparing skin. The majority of supply from the cranial nerves, 3 sphincter, cranial, facial, lacrimal, subinguinal, 9 glossopharyngeal supplies parotid gland. How it supplies? Supply parotid to the lesser petrosal nerve, while facial nerve supplies lacrimal gland through greater petrosal nerve. submandibular, lacrimations, submandibular. This is through mucosa, palate glands, glossum. Vestibulocochlear, no. Trigeminal, no. Vagus nerve supplies niche, vagus. All these three. Trigeminal nerve supplies fifth nerve. Actually, it has no parasympathetic. Which of the following muscles act together to invert? Tibialis anterior and posterior should come together. So peroneus foot inversion occurs medially at subtalar joint. Foot movement is tibialis anterior and posterior. So peroneus longus and tibialis posterior. When the acting independently, tibialis anterior dorsiflexus, anterior dorsiflexus, and posterior plantar flexus. The tibialis anterior is innervated by deep peroneal, while posterior is by tibial nerve. So deep peroneal, tibialis anterior, tibialis posterior. So tibialis anterior dorsi, tibialis posterior plantar. This is by tibial, this is by deep peroneal. Both acting at a time, they will cause inversion. When both act at a time, they will cause inversion. Stratified squamous epithelium can be found in which of the following? Epididymis, colon. It can be found only in esophagus because all the other organs epithelial arranged for the basement layers are sloughed off, suited for the area with constant insults. Stratified squamous divided into keratin and non-keratin depending on the presence of keratin on surface. Example keratins include skin, tongue, lips. Example of non-keratinized are cornea, esophagus, rectum, vagina. These are non-keratinized. The epididymis and trachea have pseudo-stratified columnar. Trachea, epididymis, pseudo-stratified, whereas colon uterus have columnar epithelium. So I'm going to stop it here.